Alright, guys, the four agreements. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. The four agreements. Where can I put my phone? Alright, I think this will work. I think I lost my earbuds, so I don't know where they are. Anyways, we're next time gonna start on page 63, which is going to be the third agreement, chapter 4, don't make assumptions. But today I'm starting at the break on page 56, went through 57, 58, 59, 60, 61. There's a blank page for page 62. So I got a little distracted by part of this, which is, I'm kind of glad that I did stop at the break last time, but I got a little bit distracted, with this, I got a little bit distracted because there are some ideas that I don't know what I think about, but I'd rather kind of record without really taking too much time to process my opinions about everything. Just I don't know, this is a topic that's maybe weird. It has nothing to do with this, but a little bit off topic. But the other day I was kind of thinking, what have I learned, or what do I think that has not been part of myself being programmed? I don't remember how long. I feel like I've been thinking about that a little bit here and there for the last week. And it's trying to find the origin. I'm not really trying to, but trying to find the origin of certain thoughts or ways of kind of going about doing things. That's something I'll probably try to get into at another time, but yeah, some reason that kept coming to my mind while I was reading this, even though that's not necessarily what this was about. But yeah, last time the book talked about this stuff about the mind having the ability to talk to itself, and not, basically where that comes from, if it's from God, if it's from something outside of ourselves, something otherworldly, and yeah, there were a lot of topics last time, but this time I got a little stumped at part of it, because there was an idea that came up that I wasn't really, I've never really heard. And so on page 56, it's don't take anything personally, because by taking things personally, you set yourself up to suffer for nothing. So that's what it says right after the break on page 56. And then it goes into these other ideas, saying that humans are addicted to suffering at different levels, different degrees, and we support each other in maintaining these addictions. Humans agree to help each other suffer. And the part that got a little kind of a rare stream of thought for me, that I haven't gotten, I've never heard this before, but if you have the need to be abused, this is on page 57, if you have the need to be abused, you will find it easy to be abused by others. Likewise, if you are with people who need to suffer. Something in you makes you abuse them. So I don't know. Like, I mean, the book goes on to talk about more. It doesn't just stop there. But it's like, okay, like, I would say that I believe that we do, to some extent, I don't know to what extent, like, but to some percentage, you know, we can manifest things, good or bad things. And it's kind of like, you know, the whole Schrodinger's cat theory of, like, if a cat's in a box and somebody pronounces it dead, is it dead before you open the box, or, like, how do you know? Like, you know, so I do think that a lot of times we can put our energy forth to kind of bring something towards us, but at the same time, I don't know what percentage of things, and I don't know if it's something that's easy to really see unless you kind of go back and reflect on everything, and maybe, like, do the math on it and see what the percentages are like. But I really don't know. Like, when it comes to things like meditation, like prayer, like kind of like asking, and, you know, vision boards and visualizing and all these types of things, like, I don't really know what percentage of that ends up in our laps, you know, like, of the work that we do on that end. And then there's a lot of unconscious stuff that, you know, we might be thinking about. The way I see abuse, and maybe this is just my own understanding, I feel like if somebody's abusive to someone else, the person who's being abusive is at fault. And the person who's being abusive is responsible for managing their own emotions, managing their own mental and emotional health, so that they can not abuse people. So even if it is somebody bringing it towards themselves or acting in a way that other people maybe don't like, I don't know. And there are people, like, I've had friends before where, like, I've talked about this, like, I've had friends that are kind of, like, nerdy and stuff like that. And I had this one friend, a really close friend, that maybe 2 or 3 people did kind of come to me and say, like, that person's a little bit of an oddball. And I could see why people kind of, like, pick on them, or one of my classmates said that they kind of, like, disliked them and wanted to pick on that person. And, you know, there were things like that where I was kind of just like, I don't really know what to say. Like, you know, like, because it's like, if I'm close to this person and I hear people saying that to me, and I'm like, well, I know it exists, that people just want to do bad towards other people just because of how they are, if they're, like, geeky or something sometimes. But it's kind of like, that to me is weird. To me, that was always weird when I heard people say that. And I'm kind of like, wow, like, really? Because the person was nice. They were, like, never, like, wronging people, and they were nice and friendly to everyone. They were just kind of, like, odd. But once you got to know them, they were, like, really, there's nothing that you would be like, oh, that's weird. But it's like, nothing really. Like, they weren't, like, cool, but it was kind of like, we hung out for years. Like, I never had a problem with them. Like, we never had disagreements, really. Like, we got along really good all the time. And I don't really know if there was, like, another person. I don't know. Like, there was just, it was just confusing to me. Why that person was maybe acting that way, like why those people were acting that way. So maybe there is something about people that kind of draws that to them. I mean, I can't say specifically if this friend of mine needs to suffer, like if they feel like they themselves need to suffer. Like, I don't think that I would get that vibe from them, but I don't really know. Like, I've never like asked them about it, but it is kind of odd to me that people can be kind of jerks for no real reason, or even voicing that they want to be jerks towards someone, or understand why someone would be jerks towards someone if they didn't do anything wrong. Like, that person was kind of like just geeky and wasn't really like doing anything against other people. Just other people felt threatened by it in a way that they needed to like put that person down or something. And that's, I don't know, it kind of sickens me. It's kind of weird. Like, I don't know if I really feel that way about people, but I guess there are a lot of people who do. So I don't really know. Like it's kind of weird to me, and I don't know, it's something I might not ever really understand, as well as like abuse and stuff like that. Like, I don't really think I fully have a grasp on why people are abusive. I know a lot of times, you know, people with anger issues, irritability issues, it can be health issues, you know, like mental or physical health. Like, there are things with physical health that can make people like that too. If it's like heart conditions, different levels of like problems with your blood can make you have like different, like iron deficiencies and stuff like that, can make people like have issues. There's definitely all kinds of stuff that can make someone, you know, have problems where they're not going to be able to like really control themselves. But then again, it's up to those people who are having those problems to get those problems fixed. I don't know, I'm kind of weird with like abuse. Like I've known abusive people in my life, and I've also worked with a lot of people who were clients of mine that experienced a lot of abuse, or were even currently experiencing abuse at the time when they were clients of mine. And I just, you know, I don't know, I am not a blame the victim type of person. I am definitely like the blame the person who's throwing hands, blame the person who's, you know, financially abusing people, blame the people who are, you know, emotionally abusing people, blame the people who are, you know, initiating domestic violence. Like, blame those people, you know, like blame the people who are beating their kids, like that kind of stuff. Like, I'm not for it, like, and I don't really know, it's kind of like a touchy topic to really try to say, that, you know, that someone who needs to suffer, or has a desire to suffer, or like an addiction to suffering, draws that kind of to them, or something in you makes you abuse them. I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. Like, I'm not saying I don't know, like it's not true, but I don't know. Like, I don't really know what I think about that. Like, I don't think it's true. I don't think I really see it that way. Like, I can kind of see how people can say, like, someone's drawing this to themselves, like somebody's drawing this to you. Like, I would say I get that. I get somebody drawing something to you, to themselves, some kind of energy or some kind of experience to themselves. But I'm not saying that it's okay for the other person to act on it and be abusive. Even if someone is drawing it to themselves, I don't think that someone should be abusive. So I don't really know. Like, that's a weird kind of topic. That is something I'd probably have to circle back to, but that's kind of how I see it. I don't know. I don't really make excuses for abusive people. Like, it's, if you're an adult and you're abusing people, it's your fault. Like, that's how I see it. Like, nobody can make you mad enough that you're gonna do something against them. Like, unless someone else is abusing you and making you abuse them. But it's like, I think, yeah, people can always leave. If they feel like they have to be abusive, they can leave and go live by themselves, be alone, if they can't stop doing that. So, I don't know. Let me see. I'm trying to see where I want to go next from there. Like, because it explains it more. But I'm trying to find the place where it explained it more. Let's see. So I think page 58. Oh yeah. So yeah, page 58 in the middle, it says, if someone is not treating you with love and respect, it is a gift if they walk away from you. If that person doesn't walk away, you will surely endure many years of suffering with him or her. And that, walking away is like temporary pain, but then you can make a clearer decision. And it also talks about, when people don't take things personally, their life is just better. They avoid anger, jealousy, envy, sadness, like a lot of, I guess I would say, something I noticed with all the clients I met with was one thing that most people gravitated towards was their social relationships, whether that's with their kids or with their parents or with their classmates or with their colleagues or, at work or just in the neighborhood, friends. One thing I noticed when I was working, with clients was something that, was pretty interesting, because I was used to having a life where most of the people I know work. Most of the people I know work to support themselves. Maybe they're not all making a whole lot of money, but most of the people I know work. It was a little different working with the clients I worked with, because a lot of them couldn't work. At least at the time we were meeting with them, they would either have general relief, like temporarily, because they couldn't work because of their mental health, or they would have like Social Security, like they get like SSI or SSI and SSDI, but I mean, they weren't like 65 or older. Like, they were basically, and they weren't like retired, they were basically unable to work because of their pervasive symptoms. And so yeah, a lot of people were on medications long term. A lot of people had past history of psychological issues going on. A lot of it, I feel like, stemmed from poverty and trauma. That was kind of what I saw more than almost anything, is that there were people who were maybe 11 years old, 15 years old, 14 years old, 8 years old, that had had experiences because of growing up in poverty, and those experiences led to some form of trauma that was untreated. And a lot of times when these clients of mine, like, everyone was at least 18 and up, but most of my clients were older than like some of my younger clients were in their 20s, but I did have some clients a little younger than that, but most of them were like 30s and up. Like the majority of people weren't like 18 to like 30. Like most of them were like much older. A lot of them were like my parents' age. Some of them were like my age, but usually there weren't people that were like too old, and there weren't people who were pretty young as adults. Like they still weren't that young. So it was kind of different though, talking to people in their 30s, and I'm in my 30s, or talking to people in their 40s. And you know, most people I know in their 30s and 40s and 20s are like working and have jobs and are able to work because they don't have symptoms impeding them from working. And so one thing that I noticed is how the lifestyle was so different. Like it's not like rocket science. Like it's, you know, it's like if you're living off of money from the government unfortunately doesn't give you that much money. Like they're not giving you like so much money that you can make all these decisions, go on trips, you know. So it would be simple stuff where I would just be like, you know, I take some days off. Like usually in June I would take days off for Pride. And then usually later in the winter, you know, I would take days off for snowboarding. And my clients started getting to know that I snowboarded and like to go to the mountains like once or twice a year or so, at least, you know. And so they would kind of ask me about it, like how was your time, like how was it, you know, like how was snowboarding and stuff. And it was something interesting because it, like, after a while, I started realizing, I was like, they can't go to the mountains. Like, just taking a weekend, even once a year, to go to the mountains is not a relatable experience, you know. Or, you know, like, there was a gentleman I was working with who was, like, probably maybe in his 50s, maybe in his late 40s. I really can't recall. But, you know, I was just talking to him, like, after talking to him for, like, I think I enrolled him, and he was a client of mine for, like, over a year, and I want to say, like, maybe the second year in or third year in, you know, we weren't meeting all the time at this point, but he would come in for, like, updates or paperwork and stuff like that, and, like, I would be the one doing his paperwork. And, you know, I came in, and he was... I came in and he was, you know, we were just talking, and I'm just kind of like, you know, casual conversation. Like, I think maybe, let's say, like, the nurse was like, yeah, just talk to him for a little bit, like, while, you know, we're waiting on this other thing. So, like, 10, 15 minutes, like, pop in, check in, just, like, see what's what while he waits for his ride or whatever. And I was just kind of like, yeah, like, what are your goals like? Like, what kind of things do you feel like you're working towards that are within reach? And what kind of things do you feel like you want, but maybe they're not within reach? And it was, like, some simple stuff. Like, he was saying, you know, he wants to be able to, you know, live with his family, you know, live in his own apartment, you know, because, like, he was couch surfing in family's house. And so it's like, you know, he felt like he didn't really have any privacy, and, you know, he'd sleep on the couch. And then, you know, he had, like, a teen that would, like, visit him, like, for vacations. So, like, spring break or whatever, like, spring break, summer vacations and stuff. And, like, saying that the kid doesn't really want to visit him because the kid's becoming, like, a teen, and, like, doesn't really like visiting because it's like now they both have to sleep in the living room of some other family member's house. And it was just kind of like, it's not ideal, but it's like, well, now my client has less space and it's a little bit uncomfortable. And, you know, people saying things like, you know, I want to go out and date. I'd like to meet someone and have someone to date. And realistically, it's like, if you're living off of money that isn't enough to even pay for barely groceries, you can't rent a place where you have your own space, you're not going to get more money, because if you get more money, they'll cancel the money that the government gives you once you start getting over a certain amount, and that amount over isn't a whole lot of money still. So you'd have to be making like 2-3 times that much money, meaning that you'd have to be able to hold a job, meaning that you couldn't be having symptoms flaring up all the time, making it so you couldn't work. And so it was this cycle, and I was just like, it was stuff like that where maybe I was blind to it at first, in all honesty. I just didn't really notice, how much that would maybe impact the person. And I was trying to think, and I'm just like, it's going to be really hard to be, outgoing, upbeat, when you're like couch surfing, can't get out of it. If I had to couch surf on my folks, on like an aunt or uncle's couch and like living in their living room, I'm like 50 years old, living in the living room, would like to go out on dates and meet people, but it's like, with what money? And I don't have a car, it's like, I can't afford a car. I can't get to a place where I can even save enough money to get a car, really. And the money coming in doesn't go that far. Like, you need clothes, you need clean clothes, you need, if you're living with someone, you're probably pitching in a little bit for their rent. People who had money for like housing assistance, like they were a little on the, maybe luckier side, because the people who had the money for the housing assistance, they were getting some kind of, affordable housing, but it's like, still, like, they weren't able to like afford things. Like, they couldn't take a trip even once a year, or just go out to a bar on a weekend just because, or it's a 3-day weekend, let's go out and like party a little while. Like, there was none of that. Like, there was no going out. There was none of that. And it's not like, okay, I just gotta stick it out this season till I get this better job, and then I can do this or that later on. There was none of that. It was like, this is just how it's gonna be. If I can't work, this is just how it's gonna be. And I know myself, I love going out. Like, I talk about it all the time. I love going out. I love to party. I like to go to raves. I like to snowboard. I like to have transportation to be able to go to the beach and visit my friends and get takeout food, and even fast food on occasions, even though I shouldn't be eating that. I like to have a gym membership. Like, there's stuff that I pay for that I'm like, I can't imagine not being able to ever do that. Like, I could see, like, okay, like, if I have to wait to go out like maybe once a month or twice a month, like, that's kind of a lot, but I could maybe wait to do that, versus, not being able to wait. But I don't know. Or like going out on the weekends or whatever. I prefer to go out every weekend. That's just kind of how I am. And so, yeah, to just be like going out more, and stuff like that. Like, I really like that. So I can't imagine if I was financially limited to the point that I just couldn't just live how I want. Like, it's not about spending money and stuff, but I don't really like being in the house all day. And it's like, how many times can I go to the beach for free, or go hiking for free, or go, walk around in the park, or walk around at the mall, and just not buy anything ever. Like, no treats, no smoothies, no, ice cream, no Subway, no nothing. Just like never being able to buy anything. Like, I really don't know, guys. Like, I really don't know. Like, I don't know if I would be able to, like, I think that would be kind of devastating for me. Like, and I don't say that, like, people who aren't able to afford stuff, that, like, it's not worth, like, it's not a good quality life, but it's like, you can still have a good quality life, but it's it's got to be hard to look around and see people saying things, or being like, oh, like, yeah, I want to buy a Tesla. I mean, if I wanted a Tesla, I could save up and eventually get one. You know what I mean? It's like, maybe I'm not rolling in money, but like, I could eventually save up to get things. Like, that's possible. Like, I could save up to move. I could get a better job. I could do those things. Like, it's possible to do them. It's possible to get a job that I even don't like just because the pay is good, and just pay for a bunch of stuff just because I want it. It's possible, or go to a bunch of events, or travel and stuff like that. Like, it's possible to make the money. I can't imagine if it wasn't possible to make the money. Because even if someone starts driving Uber Eats or whatever, like, if that money starts being seen in their account, they're not gonna get that money. And it takes, in a lot of cases, I think the number is 80% of cases for mental health SSI, it takes 3 years, unless you're like super severe at that time or something. But I think it takes like 3 years to get it, unless you're like, I think the psychiatrist that I spoke to, who I used to work with, who worked at the same clinic as me, he worked for SSI cases, and he told us that, the way they judge it is, can this person stand at a table and fold towels for 8 hours straight? Will their symptoms get in the way of that job role? So most people don't have physical or mental impediments to the point that they can not take a job like that. Like, yes, you would be bored out of your mind. Maybe it would be fun if the environment was fun, but it's like, you'd be bored out of your mind. It's not like fun, like, I don't think I could motivate myself to get up and fold towels for minimum wage or less than minimum wage. Like, I don't think I could do that. But it's like, it's a job, so it's kind of like, could I do it? I mean, yeah, technically I could do it. Could I do it? I don't really know. Like, technically I could do it, right? Like, it's not something that's gonna like completely keep me from doing what I wanted to do. But yeah, a lot of people don't meet the criteria for that. It's like, are you gonna need to take breaks? Like, the questions are like, do you need to take breaks? Like, how much percent of the time of I don't know, if I can't remember off the top of my head. Like, let's say like within an hour of the shift, how many breaks do you need? Do you need a break every 4 hours, every 2 hours, every 1 hour, every like 30 minutes, every 15 minutes? Like, how many days off in a week or in a month do you need to take? Like, do you need to take off 3 days every week? If it's a job like that where it's like you're only able to work in 30-minute increments before you need a 30-minute break, and then you're only able to work like every other day, it's like, okay, like that is, it would be a lot to consider getting hired. Like, of course, jobs aren't supposed to discriminate. People aren't going to discriminate, but, well, they shouldn't. But, now there are a lot of job forms where I've seen, you can talk about your veteran status, protected veteran status. You can talk about your disability status. They give you the option to not talk about it, but they put that on there for a lot of the applications too. Whereas I feel like when I was younger, that wasn't on the applications, but nowadays it's on the applications. So yeah, it's hard to think about, but the reason why I bring that up is, like, it's kind of easy for me to say, like, like, oh, like, don't think negative about this, or like, don't be sad, or, like, don't hold a grudge, or don't, like, anytime you're taking something personal, it's gonna lead to like sadness and things like that. But I'm like, I think there are other factors too. Like, I'm not saying that the book doesn't mention that there are other factors, but I'm just saying, like, from the psych perspective of working with people who were in poverty, like, I feel like, who are still in poverty as well, because of their mental health mostly. Like, if they were able to work full shifts, they would be able to kind of get jobs where they could, support themselves. But because they can't, they have to rely on money from the government. That's not enough for them to be able to kind of have a splurge here and there. And people will judge that. People will say, like, oh, people who get that money aren't supposed to have it, or a lot of people fake it. I'm like, dude, I would challenge almost anybody who can work and not trying to get paid under the table or do some other kind of thing. I would challenge almost anybody who can work to try to fake getting SSI. I don't know, it might be different, but in California, it's like if you're willing to take 3 years of not working just to get a little bit of money every month, like, only once it was like maybe a little around 2020, 2021 in San Diego, I started seeing clients getting closer to like $1,000 a month, maybe $1,400 a month. That's a month. I mean, in San Diego, you can't even hardly afford a 1-bedroom apartment is gonna cost close to $2,000. On a good day, $1,500 for a studio on a good day. Like, I've seen studios ranging in the $2,000 and 1-bedroom apartments like $2,200 or something like that. Like, it's really hard to find an apartment, just a private apartment to yourself for $1,500, and most people don't even get $1,500 for SSI total, meaning that they would not qualify. And so, yeah, $1,500. And that's a lot of money. $1,500 is a whole lot of money. I think, yeah, $1,500 is a whole heck of a lot of money, and it's not really, like, I don't know, it's not, like, I don't know. Like, you can't really make that much more than that if you were to get a job on top of getting SSI. And if you were lucky enough to get $1,500 a month, then that means that you're unlucky enough to have severe enough issues to get you $1,500 a month. Like, I know people who were awarded $800 a month, $900 a month. Like, trying to live off that much money, that's before rent. Like, you can't even rent a place. You can barely even rent a bedroom for $1,000. Like, maybe like $900 if you're lucky. Like, when I was sharing a place with people, I was paying under $800, and I don't know anybody that was paying under $800 but me. I was the only person I knew who was sharing, either a house or an apartment, just renting a private room, paying under $800. Like, everyone I knew was paying $900 something, $1,500, $1,200 a month, like $1,000 a month just to rent a room. And then everyone I knew who had apartments, I think $1,700 was the cheapest studio that I knew someone was paying for, and most people I know are paying over $1,500. A lot of people are even paying over $2,000 for an apartment in San Diego. So I know San Diego's not the cheapest place on earth, so it's kind of hard to compare to other cities and other states. But I mean, if you see the amount of money that people get, it's like, I know people say, oh, people who get disability are like faking it. It's like, yeah, if you have to fake it for 3 years to get $800 a month, I mean, like, and they're like, oh, they're lazy, they're just gonna sit there and collect their money. It's like, okay, if that's what you want to do, if you want to get limited financially to collect $800 a month so you could sit home and watch TV, I don't really think most people are doing that. Most people after like a year are going to be like, all right, just put me to work. Like, I'm like, screw this. Like, I don't need it anymore. Like, most people aren't going to fake, needing that money. Because it's not like you can get $800 and then make additional like couple $1,000s. Like, you're stuck with that amount of money and can maybe make a few hundred more, but you're not making like thousands of dollars more. Like, you're not able to make a livable wage enough to like afford an apartment and stuff. You're not able to make like $3,000 a month. Like, you're gonna be limited to stay at less. And so, because if you start making more, then they're gonna basically make it so that you can't get that money, and then you'll have to live off of your own income. And to try to get the money reinstated again and reapply and all that, that's a whole process of its own to appeal things. And so it's a mess. Like, it's not easy. And I don't think that it's easy for people to be happy when they're not financially free, and when they're so limited to the point where they can't even like do things other than just stay home all day, if you have to just stay home all day, it's like, I do think that people who have like severe symptoms could benefit from being able to get out more and do more stuff and like have fun experiences, like, but they can't. And so it's kind of like, I don't really know. Like, I feel like I'm like ranting about it because, I am kind of passionate about it, but, I have definitely seen how it is for people. And yeah, I'm not used to having a lot of friends that can't afford a lot of things. Like, some can afford more than others, but I'm not really used to having a lot of friends that aren't working and things like that. Like, I've known some people who were homeless. They were like living in a church and really had no money and were trying to get out of that situation, and it took a few years, but yeah, like, I had to cut ties with those people just because they were just a little too dysfunctional for my liking. Like, they were dramatic, and I mean, it was just too much for me to deal with. They lied about stuff all the time, and they would try to like I don't know, they weren't nice, they weren't considerate of me. Like, they just like saw that they thought that I had stuff and just kind of expected a lot, and I was just kind of like, I tried to be nice, but I was trying to help these people at a time when I was also struggling, but I was just like really into community service like that. So I was kind of like, I didn't really know what to do, but it was like a church thing. So I was kind of like, okay, well, let's just let these people, it was part of my community service that I kind of felt okay about helping them, but definitely it was, I knew this was right before I moved to San Diego too, so I knew that I wasn't going to have to help them forever. So I knew that like once I moved, I was going to cut ties. So yeah, but what I did have to put up with, and like, they were mostly nice most of the time, but there were times when they were like mad at me about stuff or whatever. They were saying that I was always in a bad mood and like seemed grumpy or whatever, and like I was like, I didn't really like being with them. After a certain point, it just became a chore that was coming out of my wallet, and I felt like it was a little bit inconvenient, and we didn't really have a lot in common. And they lied a lot. Like, they would, and one of them said that the other one stole their money, and there was all this like drama with like whose kids were whose and all this other stuff. Like, I was just like, I don't need to be around this. But I mean, I don't know if they were really friends. To be honest, I would say they were part of a church congregation that I was a part of, and I tried to be friends with them, but that was not healthy, and I knew that I wasn't going to sustain that. And so I kind of opted out once I moved. I was like, I don't need to talk to these people anymore, because there was no need. Like, I don't need that in my life. But yeah, I've known people like that I've hung out with. I'm not saying that all homeless people are like that, just these specific people were that way. And it was really not okay. Because they were doing all kinds of stuff. They were starting all kinds of drama, and people were kind of bending over backwards for them, giving them money, and then they'd like spend it all, and people were like, you need to learn how to budget, like they'd be asking for more money. Like, we ran out of money. It's like somebody just gave you money, like, you can't say that you ran out. But yeah, there was all this stuff happening, and I don't really know. Like, I don't really know. Like, I feel like it's kind of a lot to try to manage, how we feel, if we don't feel like we can kind of do the things that we want to do. Like, I feel like maybe it's a human thing. Maybe it's just because I live in like a capitalistic society in the US. But I do think it's hard to look around and see if you aren't really able to kind of afford the things you want to afford. That can be hard. And I'm not talking about like overspending on stuff, like, but even if it's like I'm going out way less than what I prefer to do, but if I wanted to go out tonight, I could. You know, if I wanted to go out every weekend night, I could. But, you know, I'm also very like, you know, I've definitely worked towards cultivating some really good relationships, and it's the hard thing for me is that I'm not able to see a lot of the people that I want to see very easily. Like, there are people that I want to see locally too, but there aren't that many of them. There are more people that I want to see that live a little out of the way. Like, I think my closest friend that lives a little out of the way lives like an hour away, and so there's a lot of people that I don't really get to see as much as I'd like to see. But yeah, like, it's hard to be like, oh, I can't see anybody, you know, that I really want to see. It's not really so much about spending money, but for me, whenever I want to see certain people, it costs a lot of money. It costs me a lot of money to do stuff. And so, yeah, I don't really want to get too into something, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, like, I want to be able to see certain people, but I find it hard, but it's like, I can still get there. It's not something that I'm not capable of obtaining. It just takes a lot of patience to do it in the way that I want to do it. Because if I wanted to live with roommates again, I could totally do that right now, but I really don't want to do that because no thank you. But yeah, I don't know if I have too much more to say, really. I know I kind of like went off, but I mean, I think it's all kind of related, you know, like thinking about like how we think about the world, and, you know, how we think about, you know, what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. You know, why do I feel the way I feel? Like, it is definitely a good reminder, you know, to try not to take things personally. So, like, yeah, like, I do think that it's like a helpful method of thinking. It's it's maybe something I've heard, but it's like, it's basically like challenging the kind of stuff that comes to mind, like either if it's coming from someone else saying it or from our own selves saying it inside of our own minds, like just kind of challenging it a little bit more. Yeah, but I don't know, like, I think maybe it's kind of possible to kind of try to see where we can go with things. But yeah, guys, I mean, that's it for that chapter. We're going to be going into the third agreement next. And with that, thanks for listening.